Welcome to the Book Binge. I am your host, King Crusoe, but you can call me KC. Today, we're doing another book haul video, this time covering my acquisitions for January. I'm actually recording this a couple days before the end of the month, actually, so come next book haul, there might be a couple extra items at the beginning of that to cover my bases there, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and just start. First off, I did want to briefly mention a couple of arcs, or technically arcs, that I got via Band's monthly arc send out list, whatever you want to consider what that is. I got the first couple of books, including a recent entry, I forget which one of these it is, but a few books of the Pendragon cycle by Stephen R. Lawhead. So a few books in the series were included because a recent release within the series, I believe it's a prequel if I'm not mistaken. I might as well go ahead and just flip my camera to kind of show things off a little bit better here. Flip horizontal to bring it over to the other corner. Like I said, I believe one of these is a prequel that's releasing pretty recently, and that's why some of these got sent out for ban. I just forget which one is the prequel and which ones aren't, as a result of, for whatever reason, the Kindle app on PC doesn't show covers when it comes to downloading EPUBs directly compared to having direct Kindle books, so that's a little bit of a complication factor there, but that is the primary arc that I received. The other arc that we're going to actually talk about is very early on here, is I am getting sent an arc via, this is from Wildbound PRs who's sending it to me, but it is Boston Terran's The White Country, which is a Western novel that's coming out pretty soon. It's an arc that I'm going to be checking out probably in the very near future, but like I said, I don't have my hands on this one quite yet, but actively in the works of getting that one at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and count it for this video. Let's switch back to here one final time, and then we'll move on to how I would normally begin these videos, with the physical items. So first off is going to be a little bit of a bigger book, and that specifically is the Doré illustrations for Dante's Divine Comedy. So I don't want to flip through too much of this here, just because it'll be showing off all of the artwork, but you get all of the engraved pieces that Gustave Doré did for the Divine Comedy, 136 of them, in fact, so that is pretty neato. It went on sale and had a coupon associated with it, so I got it for like a few bucks. That was pretty worth, and I'll definitely make a point using this alongside my read of the Divine Comedy when I get to that in theoretically the not too distant future. Next up, we have a couple of smaller books, those by Stephen King. I plan to read a few Stephen King books this year. Thank goodness I'm finally circling back around to this project that I started over 3 years ago. First off, I picked up Firestarter, which is a little bit longer than I had anticipated it being, but I picked this one up. Can't remember if this is the next one I'm reading by King or not. Actually, I know it's not the next one. I just forget what order I'm going to be reading these in. But then Cujo was the other one. So basically, these two plus The Dead Zone are the King books that I plan to read throughout 2025. There may be another one in there somewhere, but that is what I plan to work on through the rest of the year. So obviously I had to make sure that I owned all of them. I've owned The Dead Zone for a couple of years now at this point, so that once I get to them, I'm not scrambling to get a copy. Next up is a little bit of a nicer edition of books, and these are the complete Richard Wilbur translations of Molière, the complete plays by Molière. So there's 2 volumes of these. And then they've got the matching covers, one in the blue, one in the red. All of the plays by Molière. I watched the Ben McAvoy video on Molière not too long ago. I think it might have been November or something like that. It was not too long after Astrobot, the video game, released, because I was watching a whole bunch of Ben McAvoy videos while I was playing that game, and his video on Molière, why you should read Molière, was pretty good and was what convinced me to pick up these copies when they went on sale again pretty recently as well. So that was really exciting. The other main things that I picked up in the month of January were actually things that I ordered a heck of a long time ago. If you did not catch the unboxing video that I did, the brief unboxing video, it was the Words of Radiance leather-bound campaign. So of course I got the first couple volumes of, or the 2 volumes of the leather-bound version, the 10th anniversary version, of Words of Radiance, and then alongside it, I got Dragon Steel Prime. So that is the rest of the physical collecting that I got done in June. If you want to see a little bit more of the inside of Words of Radiance or some of the other goodies that came with that campaign, check out that unboxing video because that is what has all of that material. For now, let's go ahead and move on and go into the audiobooks section of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here, make sure that I have all this good, switch to my desktop, and show you the 3 audiobooks that I picked up in January. So the first one was volume 2 of the Gulag Archipelago. Decided to just spend a credit on that because I had gotten the other 2 volumes of this for sale pretty recently. Well, not pretty recently, it was a good while back, but both of those I got on sale for pretty cheap. That was what I was trying to say. And volume 2 hasn't gone on sale, but I had a couple credits that I've been needing to spend. So volume 2, I got that to complete that collection. And then I did a 2-for-1 sale with My Grandfather's Son, a memoir by Clarence Thomas, as like one of the 3 books in the 2-for-1 sale that I was even mildly interested in. I was just like, okay, I'll do this just to have the sale. And then Play Nice, which is a biography of sorts about Blizzard, the video game company, by Jason Schreier, which I am actually pretty interested in giving a shot at some point. So that is one that I'm looking forward to, and that is all for the audiobook collecting for the month. Let me switch over here so that I make sure I'm not doxing myself or anything while I'm switching programs around. Now it's time to move into the ebook section, where you're going to see the e-arc little bit here while I kind of work on getting to all of the places that I need to go as I find a new ebook show-off formula. So first off, I did order The Dragon's Path by Daniel Abraham on sale. That was the first thing that I picked up. Next was a quick pickup of a book that I've seen a couple times before in a couple of different places. If I could find the author, that would be Daniel James Brown's The Indifferent Stars Above, the harrowing saga of the Donner Party, which I know a decent bit about the Donner Party. That would be a pretty horrific book to read, but one that I'm interested in nonetheless, hence why I picked that up when it was on sale. Next up was by Dave Columbine, which is a surprisingly long book about everything surrounding the tragedy, of course, that was the Columbine shooting. I heard from a couple friends that this is actually like a surprisingly good, detailed, and like a very balanced take on that entire situation. So from a biographical standpoint, I'm really interested to check this out, given that it's apparently a very good telling of the tale, because it's a more of a biographical situation, like I said, but given that it apparently handles everything so well, and it is quite lengthy, I'm like, okay, that's pretty detailed. I'm interested in checking that out. That seems like it would be cool is not the right term, but you probably know what I mean. Next up was The Reformatory by an author's name who I'm not going to try to pronounce. I know absolutely nothing about this book except that a couple people are starting to read it recently, so I grabbed it because I have a problem. Next up was E.M. Forster's A Room with a View, which is another book that I've heard of before, probably because I think this is an old one. I think it's a classic of some sort. I got it for free at one point whenever I got it, so that would explain why it's over here. That was a nice little pickup. Don't even know what the book's about. I've just heard its name a bunch of times. Next up, I picked up Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. My understanding is I think this is a sequel to American Gods. Not 100% sure on that. That seems to be the impression that I've gotten, but if so, cool. I don't know when I'll read American Gods or anything else by Neil Gaiman, but I picked it up nonetheless. William Goldman's The Princess Bride, which is a much longer book than I thought it was. I picked up pretty recently, so there's a copy of that in there. Robert Graves's Claudius books, I, Claudius, and then of course Claudius the God. These two back to back. Both of them were really cheap recently, so I just went ahead and grabbed them both. As of course I think I have a few friends who've read these, and I've only heard good things if I have. So I would expect them to be good. Who knows? Maybe they're not. It could go either way. Next up was my first Thomas Harris book, Hannibal, which is, I believe, the third book, technically, of the Hannibal books, because whatever the first book was called, I forget, and then Silence of the Lambs, and then Hannibal. So this one was on sale at one point early in January, so I picked that up. I hope to pick up the other two at some point in the future. Next up is going to be Rob J. Hayes's Herald, which is the first book of the first trilogy of the God Eater saga, which is like a trilogy of trilogies. Cool concept that he has going on there. So I picked up one of the 3 books that are out so far. That's what that one is. Katsuo Ishiguro's, which one was it that I picked up? When We Were Orphans was a sale that I finally picked up pretty recently. So some of his books are starting to go on sale again, so that's nice for me. Next up is Helen Keller, wherever she is, The Story of My Life, which it seems like it's a shorter book. If I remember correctly, this one's pretty short. It's because it's a recounting of like her childhood growing up. So that would be interesting to read about, knowing what I know about Helen Keller. A Farewell to Arms, a classic I picked up for free. The Story of My Life I also picked up for free. I should mention that. So A Farewell to Arms was free. Picked that up when I came across it just because I could. Next up is going to be Ken Kesey's where is he? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I don't know much of anything about. I've heard of the name a few times, but that's about it. So I picked it up because I heard good things, but I don't actually know what it's about. That such is the case with a lot of the things that I pick up. Again, I have a problem. Lawrence Larson has a book called The Urban West at the End of the Frontier. I can't remember if this is nonfiction or not. I think it might be nonfiction. I forget. All I know is that it's kind of about like the urban west, kind of in a Western sort of setting, talking about how like cities formed in the Western environment. I picked this one up for free. I was like, that could be pretty useful for a project that I'm working on. So I picked that up. Who knows when I'll touch it, because I have a problem of picking things up without ever meaning to touch them. Next up is Uncle Silas, A Tale of Barth and Haught by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. Again, no idea at all what this one's about, but I grabbed it because I have a problem. But because it was free, I guess it's not like that big of a problem, but it's still kind of a problem. Next up, I finally finished my collection of the Greenbone Saga with Jade War and Jade Legacy. Both of them went on sale for $5 a piece, which isn't like super cheap for ebooks, but it's a lot cheaper than like $12 is. So I went ahead and grabbed them both so that I could have the collection. Still up to this point, one of my bigger regrets is not actually getting a set of these from Fonda directly while I was in Salt Lake. And over the weekend of Dragonsteel Nexus, I had the opportunity to meet her, and I did not for some silly reason. That is a mistake of mine. I also picked up Rosemary's Baby by Ear 11, which is more of a morbid curiosity thing for me, admittedly. Of course, the name is legendary, but it's, again, more of an morbid curiosity for me. Next up is Catherine Mader's Inside the Robe, a judge's candid tale of criminal justice in America. This seemed like a pretty interesting, if nothing else, the enlightenment on portions of the justice system from somebody who worked within it would be an interesting tale to read about for sure. Next up is the autobiography of Matthew McConaughey, Green Lights. I don't know a whole lot about this, but of course I've heard good things. I know somebody who I think listened to the audiobook of it within the last couple of years, said it was good. I've heard good things in general. I like Matthew McConaughey, so I picked that up. I picked up yet another James Michener book. This time it was The Source. This was my most recent pickup on this front. Not quite as long as some of these other books, but still one that seems to be pretty interesting. A lot of these big, gigantic historical epics seem like stuff that would be enjoyable to read. So maybe I'll circle back around to Michener one of these days. China Mieville's, sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, China Mieville's Perdido Street Station is one that I've heard a lot of buzz around the last few years. I don't know much about it, but when it went on sale, I decided to pick it up just to take a chance. I don't know how interested I am in this author's work in general, but this book specifically, like I said, I've heard a lot of buzz about, so I picked it up when it was on sale. Don Miller had a book called Blue Like Jazz, which seems to be, let's see, non-religious thoughts on Christian spirituality. I think the author's spiritual journey kind of went from like being atheistic to being really strong Christian to being atheistic again to coming back around to being faithful again in the aftermath. So kind of an up-down journey inside faith. I was like, cool, that actually sounds like a really intriguing book to read just from a not morbid curiosity, but a general curiosity standpoint. Somebody who's kind of on a spiritual journey myself. That's one that I decided to pick up for that reason. Next up, we have a couple Morrises in here. First, Adrian Morris, The House on Tenafly Road, which, Again, I don't quite remember what this is. Oh yeah, it's a Civil War family saga is what this is called. This is quite a lengthy book apparently, but apparently it's good based off of some of the reviews that I saw on Amazon. Again, I don't remember specifically what it's about, but it seems good, so I picked that up for free. Yes. William Morris's The Well at the World's End was also a random free pickup of mine. Again, know nothing about this, but I picked it up. Next up is Jeff Noons and Stephen Beards, I suppose. Gog Magog, which is like the first book of, I think, 2 that are out in the Chronicles of Ludwig, however you want to pronounce that. Don't know what these are about, but the concept kind of seemed like cool in an out there kind of way. So when this one was on sale, I picked that one up. It's kind of the excuse that I give with a lot of things. Next up was a free sci-fi fantasy type of book by P.E. Padilla, Vibrations, Harmonic Magic, the first book in a trilogy here. This one was like, concept actually sounded really cool, so I went ahead and grabbed that since it was for free recently. Another free fantasy-ish type of book that I picked up relatively recently, if I could remember how the alphabet works, was J.R. Rasmus's Forsaken Kingdom. I don't remember how many books are in this, but again, concept sounded cool, so I went ahead and grabbed it because I could. Next up is something a little bit less vague. We'd all, of course, know Alistair Reynolds' Inhibitor Phase was the recent pickup that I grabbed this time around. I've talked about The Storm of War by Sir or Lord Andrew Roberts quite a few times recently because I got audiobook on the Audible Plus catalog, for example. And this was another example of, yeah, I just bought the ebook because it was on sale. And the idea of Andrew Roberts' history of the Second World War as told in this book sounds good. If I'm interested in reading the history of World War II, this is probably going to be one of the early spots that I go to as a result. Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, the first book, Red Mars, had a sale recently, so I picked that up because I've been curious to try out the Mars trilogy, and not least because a couple of friends of mine really like it, but also because it sounds pretty interesting in its own right. Anthony Ryan's, let's see, what is this trilogy called? The Covenant of Steel trilogy. The third book had a sale. Again, it was like $5 or something like that, but that's better than $10. So the third book finally had a sale, like, I don't know, probably like 9 months or something after I bought The Pariah on sale. So we'll see if book 2 ever goes on sale at some point. Then I'll have the whole trilogy. So that's pretty entertaining. Scott Smith, The Ruins. This is one I've heard is pretty messed up, but is pretty good. Even friends of mine who don't particularly like the more messed up stuff said that this was a good or enthralling read. So I was like, cool, I don't know anything about it, but if it's messed up but good, sure, maybe I'll give it a shot someday. Trademark. William Stryon, wherever you are in here, or Styron, I forget. Yeah, Styron. Okay, I guess that's probably the way to say it. I might be wrong. Has a book called Sophie's Choice. This one wasn't free. It might have been free. I don't remember. I don't have a note on here if it was. This was probably a pickup that I got because the concept sounded good, like just reading the description on Amazon, but I don't remember what that concept would have been off the top of my head, so I apologize for that. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, however, is a little bit easier. This is one that I started reading quite a while ago, actually. It's been like upwards of a year and a half at this point since I started reading it, and then I put it on pause like a couple months after that. I meant to come back to it after just a couple months, and I still have not yet. But since I have been meaning to do that, probably this year sometime, maybe if I can. I got the ebook because I could, and maybe because that would make it a little bit easier to follow along occasionally whenever I get it back around to doing that, as opposed to the physical version, being able to read it at certain other times when I otherwise wouldn't. Who knows? That's something that I'm looking forward to at some point, however. And then the last couple books here, we're jumping all the way down to Tad Williams, The War of the Flowers, which is I think it's a standalone book by Tad Williams. Don't know what it's about. This one I believe I got with a bunch of Kindle credit that I had because I have a note that says free on here, but I'm pretty sure the ebook itself was not free at any point. I think it was a sale and I happened to use Kindle credits to get it for free technically. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I assume. I don't know what the book is about. I know a couple people who have read it said it was good, but for a standalone Tad Williams, I would be interested in trying War of the Flowers because most of his other series or his other stories are 4-book trilogies. We know how Tad Williams gets with that. The last book is Richard Yates's Revolutionary Road, which seems to be a pretty depressing book by all accounts and by the reviews that I saw, but it sounded good based on the concept and the way that everybody was talking praise about it. So I'm like, cool, I'll pick that up when it was on sale. And just as a little interjection here right at the very end, this is the reason why I try not to record videos before the end of the month technically, because there was another free Western book that I happened to pick up basically just a couple minutes after recording the video. So Unwanted Dead or Alive by Gene Shelton was also a quick free Western pickup. So if that's still free by the time this video goes up, cool. If not, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's another random pickup that I just threw in there. There's been a lot of Western pickups going on recently, and yeah, if you want to hear a little bit more on that, check out last week's video doing my monthly reading wrap up and TBR video, and that will explain probably a little bit more on why the Western thing is a little bit funny. Anyway, back to the original video. But that is everything in the book haul today. I think I plowed through that one a little bit faster than I have the last several of these, so that is an accomplishment on my part. But thank you for watching. If you did, what of these books are you interested in checking out? I would love to hear some of your thoughts on the ones that maybe you've already read at this point. If you have recommendations based off of some of the books that I've picked up recently, maybe some that I should like sort of prioritize a little bit more than my general just maybe I'll read it someday trademark, shout out any of those recommendations down in the comments below. I appreciate your watching this video nonetheless, but for now, I've been your host, King Crusoe, but you can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.